Tie me to your bedpost. I'm being
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bedpost Podcast. I, of course, am your host, Lady Pim, and what I like to do here on the podcast is bring fun and sexy guests into the studio to have in-depth conversations about sex and sexuality. And, of course, it is COVID time, so I don't have people right here in the room with me, but due to the power of technology, I can still interview people, and actually this has been a really cool opportunity because now I can interview people that are like super far away from me geographically. So today is certainly one of those days. I have a professional dominatrix here from LA. So please welcome to the podcast, Domina Mara. Hi Mara, how are you?
Hello. Hi, thank you for having me, Lady Pim.
It is my absolute pleasure. Yes, we're Dominas, so we're all honorifics over here. You can call me Pim, you can call me Erin, so I'm easy like that.
Right.
I'm a low protocol dom, quite honestly.
Or we other doms get like a gold star and a pass for a first name calling.
Definitely, exactly. No, it's so super funny. When I chose Lady Pim for my name for my dominatrix persona, I wasn't necessarily thinking like that my peers would just call me Pim, which is funny because Pim is my actual last name.
Oh, okay.
So I was called Pim or Pimmer growing up, or Little Pimmer in association with my older brother growing up. So it's so funny that I chose the name and I'm still just called Pim by everybody.
Well, it
Except
actually is.
submissives, of course.
Of course. It's very easy to remember, and it has a sort of like sharpness to it too. When you say Pim, it's like
Feels
it's
good in the
proper,
mouth.
but it's proper, and it still like gives the effect that you would like as a dom.
Thank you. How about Mara? How did you happen upon choosing that?
I'm actually going to do a YouTube video on this because I feel like there are a lot of questions about it. And I've also come into contact with people who are from Romania about the name. But the origin is actually from a Buddhist legend. And she was female. And she was the only demon that the Buddha had let in while he was on his path to nirvana. Yeah, they came into a little bit of a stalemate, if you will. Like, she couldn't seduce him, and he didn't reject her. So it was like a nice kind of understanding of both sides.
Very cool. I like that story a lot.
Thank you.
Do you feel like that influences like your dom persona or like your style or anything like that, like the origins of the name?
Definitely. I feel like a lot of people have portrayed through media, of course, with the help of 50 Shades and everything, dominatrix work to be very harsh and scary. And I have a lot of sensuality and nurturing on my side. And so that kind of both combined creates the type of domina that I choose and naturally have become.
Yeah. I'm finding that like more and more doms that I talk to and get to know, like in scenes and out of scenes kind of represent that more, either girl next door dom, which I personally think is kind of the trend right now. It's kind of popular right now. Or as you're saying, like, a balance of like sweet and sadistic or like, nurturing, caring. Are you finding that, or do you find people more are still sticking to that stereotype of like the super harsh dom?
I think there's always been an element of the nurturing side, but I feel like it hasn't been introduced to the world a lot. It's
Yeah.
probably more likely in lifestyle, and then obviously when a sub needs the aftercare, maybe the mommy side comes out. I feel like people tend to separate the two, like, oh, she's just sadistic or she's just sensual. But I feel like as more and more doms emerge and they market themselves to have both qualities, it's now become more accepted and more apparent because we're human, we're multi-layered. And so I feel like a lot of people resonate with both sides. Obviously, it comes into play in different ways with scenes and with styles, but I feel like it's definitely, like you mentioned, more accepted and then has bled into the girl next door type.
Yeah. Do you find that you're, like, speaking about that, do you feel like your dom persona is really related to your personality, like outside of scenes, every day Mara?
I'm actually the same person.
Me too,
in person.
100%.
And actually, in my YouTube channel, I have, I go over this a lot because people are just like, oh, you're so down to earth. Like, I didn't know that a dominatrix could be like that. And I was like, I'm a person. I don't put up any airs of how I am. Like, the power that I assert in, play is what I have in me the whole time. It's just, I am not, releasing that on you. We're not in that play mode.
Yeah, totally. I feel like similar. Like I'm kind of a chameleon in regular life and also as a dom. Like I'm for sure generalist. So, I enjoy like doing a lot of different kinks and I've got like a lot of different kind of general skills. Role play being one of them. So I can be a chameleon, like I can give you sadistic if you require sadistic. I can give you, a bunch of other notes. But I think I am all still, just picking and choosing and drawing from different facets of my own personality, if you know what I mean.
Sure, yeah, that's totally fair. I feel like, and it also depends on the mood of the day. Some days I feel extremely generous, and then other days I feel extremely sadistic. And
Just in life.
in life in general, because there's a lot of people out there who are, who need a little bit of help in life, and you kind of got to give them a push, not physically, but either emotionally or verbally.
Yeah, some people just
So-
need a talking to. They just do.
or the direction, you kind of just imply it and then they kind of have to come up with it themselves and it seems like their idea, but you just planted that little seed.
Totally. You're just like, yeah, directing the little chicklet, to their own realizations.
That's actually a very good, I guess, metaphor too, because, chicks are kind of all over the place. They run and scurry and, it takes the mother hen to kind of, push them along. It's this way.
Do you find, I'm curious about this because I do find this for myself. Do you find you playing that kind of a role like with your friends in your regular life, that you're kind of the one that people like come to when they need a shoulder or an ear? Or any other body part for that matter. No, like, but when they need support or when they need to get kind of that direction.
I think I could divide my life into two parts. One is like kink, and the other one is spiritual. And that's kind of why I also chose the name Mara, because it's based on a spiritual legend, but it also has ties to like life lessons and, everyday people. Everybody perceived Mara as a demon or a monster, but in the way that the legend has portrayed her, she's actually very human.
Okay.
And so I feel like with my friends, I've become this kind of, a lot of them are so spiritual that they get caught up in the cloud of it and they need the grounding. And so I'm kind of the person who can articulate and how to relate the spiritual side back into reality and back into everyday life using examples or even stuff in kink because they do know what I do. Yeah. And I'm kind of almost like a shaman towards them. I'm like their guide. And I know that's a high title to hold, but that's kind of exactly how I feel like as my purpose, if you will, as their friend.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Do you have a spiritual history, like just in life? Did you grow up spiritual or religious?
I did grow up religious. I was baptized Catholic,
Me
Roman
too.
Catholic.
Castle Stevens
And
out.
I was gonna say, and look at us now in kink.
Little do they know, it was still inside.
No, it's they started us early.
Yeah, totally.
But I am non-practicing. My mother is still religious. However, due to just me growing up and kind of becoming my own person, I found that there's obviously, I believe in a greater force out there in the world. And I feel like that ebb and flow kind of helps us understand it a little bit more as well as ourselves. And so I use that in my work. I use that in my relationships, building it with people. And I use that to navigate my day to day. And it's become more powerful now more than ever because I've just gone with that flow. A lot of people are very hesitant to do that because it's change and they don't like change. They're very comfortable in their ways. They've found a routine that works. And it's not to say that I don't have a routine. I am very grounded, and I feel like that's just kind of an extra tool, if you will, in life that I've kind of, taken from here and there when I needed it.
For sure. And are you able to tell people like how that specifically relates to you being in doing a scene in a dungeon or in a play space with a sub or a client? Like how you might draw on those qualities in a session?
For sure. I think one of them is being that rock that the submissive can always go back to because they might be nervous entering the room and they might be nervous exploring their submissive side if they haven't found it yet. They might be nervous trying new fetishes that they've just seen, but they're giving me the responsibility of their mind, body, and soul. And it's up to me to make them feel as, the most comfortable in doing that. I'm not saying the most comfortable in like, their shackles or anything. I'm talking about the comfort in the responsibility and gifting that, and that they're in good hands, safe hands. And I find that once they have that locked away and in their mind, they're just like, okay, I am in safe hands. They are able to then give all of themselves to me. And that's the beauty of it. I find that over the years, I've opened up countless people, not just to kink, but just to me as a person, to me as their key holder, to me as their mistress. And it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I agree that and I would hope that most practicing DOMs would agree that like the number one thing is to get the client feeling safe to be able to go there with you, like to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to be emotional, to just to show off a side that might be outside of their box or something that they don't get to express regularly. Like just that trust, establishing that trust, that's like number one thing that you need to do before starting the actual scene, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
I find that like most DOMs that I know, like local here in Toronto, are like lovely, warm, welcoming people. So like when you welcome a client into the space, you're like, hello, how are you? My God, nice to see you. Come on in. Can I get you something? Like, sit down, let's chat. Like, which is the total opposite, I think, of what people perceive of dominatrices.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm not. I feel like sometimes it also depends on the person because if they are seeking protocol, then I will have them bring a bottle of water for me that's fresh from the fridge somewhere, and they can't look at me until I address it and blah blah blah. But there's still the warmth
Yeah.
that is accepting of who they are, what they're there for, and we go from there. I feel like a lot of new DOMs that I've seen recently kind of are seeing the play aspect as the first layer, and maybe that's kind of how I've seen it too when I was first starting out, but they don't some of them don't see this as a journey, right? It's your journey, it's the submissive's journey, and then it's your journey both together. So
Yeah, because you've been doing this how long now?
it'll be 7 years in August.
Wow, professionally, 7 years?
Yes, professionally. I started out professionally and then kind of adopted the lifestyle aspect of it as I went. Yes.
Oh, very interesting. So, pre your dominatrix career, you didn't really do kink, or what do you mean by that?
No, I didn't. It always kink popped into my life a lot of times while I was coming of age, like when I was going to school and like the birthday gifts that people would give me. And I never really saw it. I was like, I'm never going to use these like leather handcuffs. Why are you giving these to me? And, maybe it was little did I know later on that, they saw something that I didn't get.
They knew though.
Yeah.
You didn't. Yeah.
And I don't know, I felt ready when I actually got my first corporate job, because that's when I was being manipulated. And I was like, how is this person doing it? And I was more fascinated than anything else. So kink popped into my head then. And I was like, okay, now's the time where I think I can, experience the psychological aspects of it, because I've experienced something that I could relate to it.
Yeah. Were you a person that thought you should begin by exploring the submissive side, or did you go top first?
Unfortunately, I started in a house, and their rule was if we didn't have any professional or lifestyle experience, we had to start from the bottom no matter what if we wanted to work there.
See, I've heard of that, but I don't think I've actually talked to somebody where that was actually what they had to do or what they did. So tell me, okay.
Old school.
It is, right?
Yeah, and I actually am really glad that I went through it, because I know how everything feels. I've tried probably everything at least once besides heavy blood play.
Yeah.
And or scat or any of that. But in terms of, the general not extreme play, I've tried everything, and it gives me an extra layer of knowledge that I find, when I read my submissives' bodies, I rarely have to ask them, how they are doing, because I can read their bodies now expertly and I know how it feels. I don't know if I would have learned that as quickly if I didn't go through it myself. I don't think so. And then on top of that, I feel like I know the psychological buttons to press now too.
Yeah.
And I treat it as an experience. I've never considered myself a submissive. I've bottomed for people who have tied me up in rope before, but that's, again, how I learned the quickest how to tie. And so I think it's important to at least try it once, because you always learn something new.
Yeah.
I've always learned
It's a new
different
perspective,
things.
right?
Yeah, definitely. And different, like I mentioned before, different days treat you differently. There was one time when I was heavily on my menstrual cycle, and that affected me as well.
So you have done heavy blood play.
Live. Right. But heavy blood play on top of the kink aspect is like, that's crazy that I'm still alive right now, right? It's like,
Yeah.
but that also gives me the knowledge. I have female submissives as well, and that gives me the knowledge of being a little bit more sensitive during their cycle, watching that sit area, that they're on their butt, to be just aware, because, some males might do that, but we as women know what it's like, to be on that cycle.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think that it is necessary? Would you go that far to say it's necessary for a dom to bottom for a kink before practicing it from a top space?
No, I wouldn't call anything necessary in that regard, only because some people just really don't have that in them. But I would say that it's necessary for them to go to a class or go to another dom who is a little bit more experienced in them, whose style matches theirs, or even if the style doesn't match theirs, to kind of just watch how they treat other submissives and really focus on the submissive. You know, if you're there to learn techniques, that's great. If you're there to learn a skill like with whipping, that's great. But also really observe that submissive, because how they react, and again, it's going to be different throughout all submissives, but generally how they react to a certain lash or a certain task, you know, will trigger something in you. And I feel like you can take that, you know, you're just putting more things into your tool belt as you, you know, go along your journey as a dominant.
Yeah, definitely. Like, even I feel like even if you do bottom for, you know, several kinks or one kink on several different days, that's still only your perspective of how you receive whatever type of stimulation, you know, the kink entails, right? So, yeah, it gives you more information as a dom to have bottomed for those things, but it's still, there's still so much more information out there that you're going to have to learn via topping other people, like just experience, put in those hours, you know?
Right. Like one person that came to me thought he was a submissive. I immediately found out he was a fetishist because he was just into the pain and spanking aspect of things. More, not even disciplinarian, because he wasn't into doing punishment because of something. He was just into the feeling. And he had the smoothest bottom, but it was incredibly difficult to make him feel something. And I don't understand. Like, usually
How his body works.
Yeah, I was like, man, I'm going like, you know, 80%.
My hand is hurting. My wrists are hurting.
I had to switch from my hand to a paddle because I was like, I know you like barehanded spanking, my geez.
I just cannot.
Yeah, so, you know, and that's just him. Other people are extremely sensitive and you can only use like a cupping, you know, technique on them. It's just, it's fascinating to me how everybody's bodies are so different, but that's also the beauty of it.
Definitely. And that's what's, for me, that's what's interesting about it, is like learning somebody's body. Like the first session, you know, you're kind of like feeling the person out and trying to figure out some things. I feel like the second session, then you're like, all right, like, let's go. Because I feel like it kind of takes that long.
I feel like even longer. And
totally.
Because time keeps on going on, I've had clients for 6 years and over 6 years, and even now their bodies have changed. Some of them are getting, I mean, we're all getting older, but some of them have gotten to the point where maybe they need to take blood thinners, you know, and now I have to be a little bit more careful on, you know, bruising aspects or avoid areas entirely.
Yeah, maybe they've had an injury over that time. Like our bodies change, you know, as we're older, then you know, falls happen and we fucking hurt ourselves, and then we've got a sore shoulder for the rest of our lives, or we can't lift our arm higher than however high.
And if you're a dominant, you also have to adjust, because if you do hurt your shoulder, you know, you have to find another way to carry impact that you can control, or that you can, you know, that you can deliver in a way that is the same as before but isn't injuring you.
Totally. Yeah, because it's a repetitive motion thing. It's just like anyone, like carpal tunnel on computers or whatever. It's like if you do something enough times, you're gonna have strain in that area or wear or tear on that area, right?
Exactly.
Speaking of that, do you have something specific that you do to maintain like your physical wellness?
Yes. Well, when we were outside of lockdown, I used to go to the gym probably 4 to 6 times a week.
Damn.
And on my best days, which hasn't been for about over a year probably, I would do something like yoga or stretching in the morning, something for the mind and body, but also just because, you know, we're sitting a lot of the time and I just need to bring circulation back into my legs. And then that would be followed by an hour of dance. I love to dance.
Me too.
And Yay! It's such a great form of expression, and it uses literally your entire body from brain to like your toes.
Yeah.
And I love it. And then in the evening, if I am feeling up for it, I would probably do Tuesdays and Thursdays, like HIIT workouts, HIIT, which are more intensive, more strength building, core. But again, haven't done that for a while, and since we're at home, I've been less good about
Keeping up with it.
maintaining. Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to
So,
do a few YouTube videos, because you can't get to the gym or you can't maybe get to your space that you usually do. So yeah, I'm at home trying to do like YouTube workout videos for sure.
it's not the same though. It's
it's
like
not.
that. I feel like if we DOMs are going to submit to anything, it's to our own mental capacity and for maintaining our bodies during this time.
Totally. Or like what I've actually done is gotten another Dom to like monitor my workout schedule. The only thing that will motivate
That's
me.
great. See now we can actually explore the submissive side and really
you
go ham on that. Yes.
Totally, like I've got to submit like I have a Fitbit, so I have to, submit my weekly thing, right?
Oh, man.
So there's no fudging that.
Yeah. But you know what? In a way, this is for the better. Like any submission I find isn't like people. That's another thing that's misconstrued is that it's people think that it's just a source of degradation and humiliation, but actually, it can also be an improvement on your lives. Like
100%.
people don't see that side. Some people even do. On a regular data basis before the pandemic happened, what do you call it? Exercise logs. Say a submissive is overweight. They go to a fit dom and they see that they are killing it with their body, with their health, with their lifestyle, and they want to adapt that as well. And so they will submit a log of what they've eaten, all the way down to what exercises they've done. There maybe even sleep schedules, because that helps a lot too if they drank the right amount of water that day. And that's incredibly helpful. It's like your own personal coach, but then you get punished if, you don't do it.
So sexy times, yeah.
Or not sexy times.
Or just whining subs. I have friends who, like, in their dynamic, like with their partner, one, helps them say when they're experiencing depression, and make sure they eat and make sure that they take a break and that they shower and different stuff like that. The person I'm specifically thinking of, it's a remote relationship, so there has to be certain, there's not somebody right there in the room to be like, okay, we're doing this now, like, you can do it, It's like a lot of work that needs to be kind of done between the two, and I'm not saying that works for everybody, but for this particular couple, they both respond really well to having the dominant in the relationship kind of help them through tough times with their mental health as well.
Definitely. And the beauty of remote sessions is that you can make it extremely ritualistic, like I do in my my in-person sessions, where perhaps you have them follow a set of things that they have to prepare before they get on cam with you or on the phone with you.
Yeah, give them
or
homework.
even text. Yeah. And maybe you make that a thing that they have to do before every single time. And for them to help with combat that depression, them focusing on that task and in order to please you because they want to, that is already something that they know that they can achieve.
Yeah.
And the benefit, how do you call it? The reward of that is having the dom just verbally saying it, and emotionally making it a positive reinforcement for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, it's actually funny. I think most of the, specifically, like, the texting sessions that I do, they're actually more centered on this type of play or this type of a dynamic, where it's like me instructing them to do 3 different like self-care things that evening or what have you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, so what are 3 things? Great, you had a very productive day. Really nice to hear. But what are you going to do for yourself tonight? Give me 3 things, you know?
I love that.
Or before we talk next week, give me, give me 10 reasons. Here's your homework. Give me 10 reasons why people choose to have you in their life. Like stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. And again, the positive reinforcement that makes them really think about it and put it on paper and see it as a reality to themselves.
Yeah. And I mean, if they're having trouble doing it, it's like, okay, well, maybe that's time to examine why you can't think of, reasons people love you. So, I mean, I always tell people, like, I'm not your therapist. Like, I can be one of the tools, A dominatrix is like one of the lovely tools you can have in your kind of mental wellness tool belt. For sure, like, a professional who's actually trained would be fantastic as well. But, like, we can all kind of fit together and kind of, as you said, help somebody along their journey. And also, I mean, I don't know about you, but like when I'm doing stuff like that, I'm kind of talking to myself too. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm not a mental health professional, but I have my own experience with mental health, right? So that's where I speak from. So often I'm talking to like myself if I was the sub, what would I need to hear right now? What would help me right now?
And it's coming from you, so it's your literal thought process that you're giving out to somebody in response to their situation, right? It's your version of problem solving, whatever it is that their problem is, and you're literally helping with critical thinking and what would be best for them, but in turn is probably good for you too. Yeah, for sure.
Another misconception I find is that sex workers only do it for the money, and that is like the only benefit that we could possibly get out of this. How do you feel about that?
Oh man, and even I'm surprised at how many lifestyle people who have been in kink for so many years also have that almost poor connotation of a professional dominatrix because they think it is for the money. It's like, no, I have honed my skills, put hours of, classes into play, money from those sessions back into an investment for what I want to become. And it might just be that they haven't met the right professional dominatrix that they could see that, but when they meet me, I definitely change their mind about it because, it's the money is great. It is a life decision to go full time into this, but it's not easy. There are countless threads online of how many things we have to become in order to make this a business for ourselves, and it's not fair for people to say that, a professional is any less than what a lifestyle person is, giving less because they're asking for money. I honestly almost think that, from my experiences, I went to several play parties at the beginning of the year for the first time in years. And I was surprised at how many people were very unaware of how many areas that they were hitting that are red zones that you don't want to hit, And I'm not going to stop their scene. I'm not going to tell them and say, hey, you're doing it wrong. But the lack of knowledge was kind of like shocking to me.
It's scary.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just had to do with that specific play party or not, but I've seen it in a couple of play parties, 2 different ones at different times hosted by different people, and there were I would say over 250 people attending. And so for me to have stayed there for the amount of hours that I did, which was from, like probably 10 to 4 a.m. in the morning, it was I don't know what to do about it. I don't know if I should say something about it as a professional. I don't necessarily want people coming at me like, "Oh, well, you're just looking down on people who are lifestyle." It's not about that. It's about safety.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And as a professional, I also feel like because I've played with so many more people, I have the capacity to remember a lot of details about those people and know how to play with those details, incorporate that into, play. Whereas if you're playing with one person or just the group of people that you normally play with, that's great. But also, I don't know if you have the creative, like you've released that creative boundary on your mind.
Totally. If you have a group of, like 4 people that you routinely play with as a lifestyle dom, it's like, great. So you know how to play with those 4 people.
And if that's all you want, that's also fantastic. Master
Sure.
that, right?
Yeah, and I was
But-
just going to say, and that may not necessarily be true for all lifestyle doms. Of course, don't want to make like a blanket statement, but it's
Sure,
like
sure.
the fact that pros come in contact with new people just constantly, like revolving door of new people. And again, the idea is that we accumulate regular clients, regular subs as well, but it's like a totally different skill set, and I'm not saying it's better or worse than like a lifestyle dom, but it's a totally different skill set of like you've got to basically have a small negotiation with this person and then be able to go, baby. Like that is not something everyone can do. And that
Right.
comes from, as you're saying, years and years of experience of playing with all different types of people, all different kinks, in different styles, in different play spaces. It's like the adaptability and the improvisation and the empathy is like all super, super valuable skills that we have or that we're working towards.
100%.
Yeah.
It's always a work in progress, too. That's kind of what I love about it is like you're never just finished.
Oh, yeah.
With anybody, even yourself. Like there's always room for improvement. Even if you've had a submissive for like 20 years, I'm not there yet, but I can see the doms that have had those subs. And how do you think that those subs keep on returning?
Yep.
I doubt that their play is going to stay the same for all those years. There is an evolution to it, and I find that with professionals, that evolution happens in a much like sturdier way because they have created a groundwork for themselves in order to kind of pave the path from like the origin would be the dom, and then all those paths emerging to all the other subs. So
How do you feel about like the thought where it's like, okay, well, lifestyle doms are in a relationship with their subs. So pro doms, have clients. So it's not going to be a similar experience because a pro is, playing with someone that they're not, let's say, attracted to possibly, not like don't have love feelings for, don't have intimate feelings for. What do you have to say about like the difference between that and what a lifestyle dom might experience? Is that true? Is it not? How do you feel about it?
I actually know quite a few doms, professional doms, who are in relationships with submissives, but are able to, and that's the lifestyle part, and then they are able to still play as a professional with other submissives as their clients. And I think that's almost like the kind of holy grail, right? Because you can eat your cake too with it. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that it's a hindrance, because if that submissive really loves you and knew that this is the path that you chose for yourself, that's kind of what they have to honor. But I find that it's an interesting question, because I find that there's more of a difficulty when it comes to the submissive who is a client who wants to get into a relationship or sees your dynamic as that kind of relationship. That's kind of the tricky part.
Yeah. Like it is a relationship in that I'm in a relationship. with everyone I'm in relationship, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. There's
so
the
it is and it isn't.
intimacy.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And I'm seeing you vulnerable, and we're doing this intimate act, like an emotionally
Mm-hmm.
intimate act, potentially as well. But yeah, I'm wondering what you think about like the quote unquote relationships we have in every scene we do with clients versus like relationships that we might have with like folks we date, you know?
Right. I, for me personally, I am the same person
Yeah.
all across the board because I find it's more exhausting to become somebody else for a relationship, like actual dating, if I can't be myself. And then almost similarly, like I don't want to have to put on a face before I get into a room with somebody to dominate them. So what I've created for myself as a professional and lifestyle dominatrix is that I've found who I am. I'm very comfortable with who I am. And then I'm able to share that with other people, regardless if they're my, lover or my paying client,
Yeah.
submissive, you said fetishist, whatever they want to label themselves as.
Do you find difficulty in I suppose you've been doing it 7 years, so you've probably sorted it out by now. So maybe at the beginning, did you have difficulty doing scenes with people that you hardly know? Did you come up against any like struggles there?
Definitely. There are people who write beautiful things, beautiful emails, messages online, and then when you get in the same room with them, become another person. And those people, I've definitely honed in on who those people are because I can either tell they're, time wasters now or
Yeah.
people who just who are fetishes who think they're submissives. Those who want to sneak in topping from the bottom, which is like on my hard limits
Yes.
list.
Yeah.
So I've learned over the years through those experiences how to handle each of those cases. And I think in the beginning I was a little bit more I was I was almost too open because I was like a sponge. I wanted to soak up every single experience that I could in session. And so, because of that, I feel like I gave a little bit more leeway to people, how they addressed me or how they shifted the session when I was kind of headed towards another direction. Um, but I think being aware of those situations happening and then figuring out a way to have that not happen in the future was my own problem solving. And again, that had to happen through experiences and then also just really sitting down and thinking like, wow, that made me feel really weird, after the fact.
Yeah, I've
How
been
did
there.
that happen? Yeah, how did that happen and how do I make that better? Not
Yeah.
just for me, because when it's better for me, it'll be better for the submissive.
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanted to talk about, because you've brought this up a couple times now, and I don't know I've like had a fleshed out conversation about this on the pod before, but you mentioned the difference between a submissive and a fetishist. Can you describe that a little bit for our listeners?
Yes. So there is a difference between a submissive, a fetishist, and a bottom,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Bottoms are probably the most vanilla out of all those categories because they are there for you to practice on. They're there to experience a little bit of kink, but like not necessarily go home with it. Or if they do go home with it, they are in service to somebody else. They're not in service to you. A submissive, or let me do fetishist next. A fetishist is a person who unfortunately may think that they're in service, but they actually just get turned on by a specific thing. So it could be a foot fetishist. They are sexually turned on by a foot or anything that has to do with feet or shoes or the attachment to a leg or that thing. It's an object. Whereas submissives are people who, and there's a variety of it. This is the overall umbrella definition of it. So a submissive is somebody who wants to serve somebody else, and that can have different rules, that can have different expectations, but at the end of the day, they want to please a dominant, somebody higher up than them, somebody who they want to give themselves to responsibly, wholeheartedly, mind, body, soul to.
Yeah.
And I actually consider fetishes clients because a lot of true submissives get offended
By the word client?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I'm not just paying for you to be a client. I want to be your submissive. It's like, okay, but you don't get to tell me that you are my submissive. I tell you when you are my submissive and when you've earned that, And I think a lot of people these days think that it's a fast term that they can throw around, like like a person that I don't even know, that I've never played with, who has sent me their introduction, already says you're slave, and it's like, no, man,
you're not.
like
Not even close. We haven't even played together.
Exactly. The fact that you're signing it that way already tells me that you are not that. If
You will never be that.
Because they don't get it, and if they would like to go that route, they could have signed it under your consideration, or your aspiring submissive, something that's like, they would love to go that route should I have them, but they're not there yet, and they know it. Because that's in respect to me and what I say. Like, I haven't even had a say, and you're already deeming yourself as mine? No.
Yeah, how dare you? Let alone, like, the emails where people are like, I'm looking to be a lifetime, house sub or something. It's like, cool. We haven't even met each other yet. And they're just like, okay, so let me know if I can be this for you. And I'm like, what? No, that's like not even close to how it works.
I feel like it could be okay if that person was like, this is what I aspire to in the future. But then they pose the question like,
right,
how could I go about doing this for you? What would you think if you're even seeking this? Because some people might not even be seeking.
I for sure am not.
Yeah, same here. I don't want strangers coming into my home that I have made a sanctuary for myself. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And also, I am very diligent at cleaning. I don't think a submissive could do better than me.
Same.
So I don't want people touching my things. If it's for the play space, if it's cleaning up after a session, fine. And in all honesty, that's how I would probably test them. I would see how they clean up the play space first.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a great way to approach it. Like what are the first steps I can take towards working, towards my ultimate goal, which is this. I like the transparency of it. I like them saying, like, ultimately, ideally, this is what I'm looking for. But I'm looking for them to also be open to the fact of all those things, like that I could possibly not be looking for that at all. That this is completely dependent on, these first steps before we get to that. Like, I'm just looking for a little, like, self-awareness about what that actually means.
Also, just because I don't want my house to, per se, to be clean, that doesn't mean I don't want my leather boots to be clean, because I love boot worship. There's another aspect in my life that I could shift you towards and say, like, all these leather boots need conditioning and scrubbing, get to it. But if that person doesn't like feet and doesn't want to be in service in that way, that's a fetishist.
There you go.
Know? And a lot of subs aspiring subs don't get that. They think that because they are in service or want to be in service in a way that they are automatically a submissive. It's like, no, because you have that specific thing in mind, that almost expectation, and I don't want that, we are not going to match. And also, you're not a submissive. You are looking to satisfy that one interest, which is the fetish.
Yeah, and not to say a fetishist is a bad thing. Like,
no, not at all.
It's just the self-awareness again of, like,
yeah.
Once I get in the room with you, and just like you're saying, I'm kind of realizing that it's not about submitting. It's about, say, this happens to be common with foot fetishists. I find that they don't want any domination type stuff happening whatsoever. It's just the feet, worship. As you said. It's whatever specific type of foot kink they're into. And that's fine, because I do accommodate sessions like that. But that is for sure something I would prefer to know beforehand, whether I'm dealing with a submissive or I'm dealing with a fetishist. That's all.
It might not be in their knowledge too, because they might be new, or maybe they were
Yeah.
taught this way and always have thought that way, that they are submissive. But
Yeah.
it's good to kind of have the conversation and really tell them, like, hey, this is the definition, and just because you request this of me, I see you as this, and it's not to say that that's any worse or not, but this is what your intention is. Thus, I'm going to label it correctly.
Right.
And it's definitely not my intention to put them down about it. It's just I'm going to call it what it is.
For sure.
And what the people who have come up with the labels in kink have defined these things as.
For sure. Yeah. And I find that can often be the case when, say, you're negotiating for whatever type of session it might be with a person, with a potential client. A lot of people don't have, like, they clearly don't have the knowledge that a 7-year professional dominatrix would have, right? So it's a matter of, like, us knowing the right questions to ask to kind of extract the information and be like, oh, okay, so they're not actually what they said at all, or they don't actually want half of the stuff that, you've got to, like, do that kind of picking out of, like, to kind of determine what the session will be like or what this relationship might look like. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But what's sad is I've also seen people who have been playing for 20 years who haven't asked those questions either. So, I mean, it's about the due diligence, right? I feel like the time that you put in obviously has a big stance in your status of things, but also just like, how often have you checked in? How often have you really made the effort to know your subs, know yourself, know what you do know in comparison to what others know? It's just like a good self check-in. And I feel like a lot of good professional doms obviously do this, but I have seen few that don't, and who just kind of see it as oh, no, they'll just serve me because I say so.
Totally.
It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up, that just because a dom has been doing it for years, like a pro has been doing it for years, doesn't necessarily mean that they have the, purest of intentions. Like, there are bad pros out there. Just saying.
And it's up to the sub to really do their due diligence in researching that. And alternatively, I would like to point out some new doms have taken the time to really check in with themselves and do their homework, and they're awesome out the gate, And
Totally.
I think that it comes hand in hand with pros and cons on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like you've learned something specific from when you started out to where you are now? Is there a certain revelation you've had about anything along the way?
Oh, man, patience is a virtue.
Yeah.
As much as I am dominant and, I can demand a lot of things from submissives, it's, I've really learned how to talk to people. I have a short fuse, but because I'm aware of that, I try not to let a lot of things that would spark it to affect me over the years. And that has come with lots of playtime and how I've handled that. There are a lot of instances where I feel like I could have spoken to that specific submissive better. Because at the end of the day, it is still sort of customer service that I have to, and I hate that term because it's not a service per se, but there is that customer awareness, let's say, to talk to them in a way that makes them seem like, yes, you're paying for it, but you're also you're also receiving this dynamic because that is what you want. And then it's also, if something didn't go right, stating it clearly, but in a way that's not going to possibly offend them, because, text is also difficult. If you don't see them in person, they can project their own feelings into it, and then that can misconstrue what you were originally trying to say.
Yeah.
But just taking the time to really analyze what happened if it didn't go a certain way of mine, and really being patient, not just with the submissive, but with myself.
Right.
Because maybe I always try to do the best that I can at every given time throughout the day. I always try to be the best person, but some days I'm better than others. Some days, it just was feeling off. Maybe I really did try, but something was not happening, And so just being patient with myself and giving myself the forgiveness that, like, yes, I made a mistake, acknowledging it, and then learning from it and trying to fix it and not having that happen in the future. And hopefully I impart this onto my submissives too, should they make a mistake with me, that I have the patience and forgiveness, but also that they have the self-awareness to look back on it and reflect on it and be like, oh man, yeah, okay, I did mess up, and I really should try to do better if I want to stick with this person.
Yeah, totally. I love that. That's a great thing to learn. So
Yeah.
we're kind of finishing up our episode here, believe it or not. This has been so
It
nice.
went by really fast.
Time flies, right? Two dominas chatting. Just time flies. But before you go, I would love for folks to, you mentioned your YouTube channel, and I know you're on Twitter, and you're also in another couple places that you want people to follow you or check out, send you money, all that kind of stuff. Let us know.
Yes, please. Thank you for that. So if you don't know much about me, I think the best way that you could really introduce yourselves is through my YouTube channel. You can look up Domina Mara, Mara, and I will come up. I have everything from, if you're a beginner to king, to how-to protocols, like how to approach a mistress. And then I've recently launched a couple of more playlists where I interview dungeon owners.
Nice.
Because I love the variety of different spaces that people have all around the world. Like the last two were from Greece and Denmark. So
cool.
check that out. It's called Modern Dungeons. And obviously when lockdown lifts, I would love to continue doing that, as I travel for my work. And then recently I've also released a ASMR playlist, which has to do with sounds. I also do my own photography. I also do my own short films. So all the short films that you see on YouTube have been storyboarded, conceptualized, and directed by myself.
Wow.
All the photos that you see on my website were either taken by myself or my camera associate. But I direct every shot. Everything has been conceptualized by me, and I edit every single photo myself because I don't like anybody touching it. And sending it out to the world has to be by my final hand.
Cool.
So if you like what I do, I have monthly sets. Donations are always appreciated. That will help with future props, with future locations. And I'm an artist first and foremost, so I would love any feedback, any donations for that to continue happening.
Amazing.
And you can find all of that through dominamara.com.
Fantastic. And on Twitter, you are also Domina Mara.
Unfortunately, no, there's a Romanian Dominamara. So
Damn
on
it.
Twitter and on Twitter and
How dare she.
Instagram, I am I am at Mara Domina.
Perfect.
And I used to be Domina Mara on Instagram, but I've been disabled and deactivated twice. So this is
Don't
the
even get me
third
started.
account. Yeah, and it sucks because I'm the actual artist. So for me to have produced hundreds of images to have it taken down, like, it's one thing if you paid or collaborated with a photographer to put your images up, but it's another thing to have made them yourself and spent the hours of conceptualizing and editing, and it really got to me. So
Ugh, I'm so
please
sorry.
support.
I feel you. I so feel you. As far as bedpost things go, Instagram is the Bedpost Podcast, which is another one that's gotten deleted like 4 or 5 times at this point. My Domina Twitter is at the Lady Pim 1. My Domina Instagram is at pim.lady. If you want to email me about anything bedpost related, you can do so at thebedpostsexshow@gmail.com. Likewise, emailing me about anything dominatrix related, you can do so at ladypim@protonmail.com. Patreon for the podcast, lots of cool bonus content there, including a lot of kinky shit too, since we've been talking about kink a lot today. That is at patreon.com/thebedpostshow. And before I leave, I always like to give a shout out to the lovely lady that does all the original music for my podcast. Her name is Stephanie Copeland, and you can find out the rest of her art and music at stephcopelandmusic.com. Lastly, Domina Mara, such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so happy we could arrange this finally.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh my god, my absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to check out the video of our chat. I would love to see your face while I was talking to you too. So everybody check that out, and everybody check out the Bedpost podcast next week when we have another fun and sexy guest here in the studio talking about sex and sexuality. Bye!
Bye.